Hi guys, Deanne here from Canada Abroad, and thanks so much for tuning in. Today we are giving you updates on two important things that are going to be changing in the Canadian immigration system this year. And the two things we're going to be discussing, just because I am going to put the chapters below, if you want to skip one and go to the next, you're going to be able to do that. One is about the bill that is going to allow the immigration minister to make changes to the way that they pick people from the express entry system. So instead of just saying this draw is for federal skilled workers or provincial nominees, they're going to actually be able to say different occupation codes or language skills. And the other thing that I'm going to be touching on is a new, essentially, TR to PR pathway that the immigration minister is working on. Now, this new program that he was speaking of, some people are calling it M44 or Motion 44 or Subprogram 44. So if you've heard that going around, that is what we're going to be talking about. So you can choose if you want to listen to both or skip ahead for one or the other. So first, I am going to be talking about the bill. As we've discussed before, this is a bill to implement changes that were proposed in the budget last year. So the changes, it's going to be varied. It's not all about immigration. There's a lot of things in this bill. So obviously the debate and the steps involved, it's not just super simple an immigration bill and it's going to go forward. There's other parts that are involved. So that's, part to understand. This is not just an immigration bill. But the part that does refer to immigration, it's basically going to allow the immigration minister to issue ministerial instructions regarding express entry draws. So he will be able to say, like he does in each express entry draw, this draw was just for federal skilled workers or provincial nominees, or it's an all category draw. But on top of that, what he'll also be able to say is, this draw is just for people whose profile was under NOC code XYZ. So he'll be able to say, is it just one NOC code? Is it multiple NOC codes? And then also what your comprehensive ranking system score had to be. He'll be able to say, do you have to have a approved French test and an English test? So he could pick people based on their language abilities. And what the bill also says is he's going to be able to have conversations with certain stakeholders to get recommendations about who immigration should be choosing in these express entry draws. And in the bill, the stakeholders that they list that immigration can, discuss this with would obviously be the provinces and territories of Canada. So they say industry, there's unions, researchers, workers advocacy groups, settlement providers and organizations, so people who are, working with new immigrants because they see trends and, maybe who's finding jobs, who's not finding jobs, what jobs are in demand. So he's going to be able to, confer with all of those types of groups to make a decision on which occupation codes are actually in demand in Canada and who's going to be able to actually start working if they get picked for permanent residency. So this bill is very important because it is going to change the way that express entry draws are going to occur going forward. Currently, it's going to be going to its second reading at the Senate. So it hasn't been approved or passed. It's going through all of the steps right now. So after its second reading, it'll have a third reading. And then if it passes, it goes to the Governor General. And there's a few more steps involved before we're going to see that get implemented, as long as no changes are made in the next few readings. So if any changes are made, we'll let you know. So if anything is removed or it's altered, we'll let you know. And as soon as it is passed, we should have a date of when it's going to be implemented. Sometimes it's in the act or the bill itself, and sometimes the Governor General will state the day it's going to go into effect. So as soon as we have that, we will let you know, but it has moved along 2 stages since our last video. So it is moving along. It does look like it's going to go ahead. So it's just a matter of when it's going to be implemented. So this is important for people looking at the express entry system because traditionally express entry has just been based on your comprehensive ranking system score. So, you look at the draws and you say, well, my score is way off. There's no way that I'm going to get picked. If this comes into play, well, then you have no idea actually, because if you have what traditionally would be a lower score, you could still be picked because maybe your NOC code is going to be targeted. If you're in express entry, and I'm just throwing numbers out there, we don't know concrete any of this, but say you're in there right now and you've got a 450. We know that used to be a good score. With the backlogs right now, though, we're expecting draws to be up in 500s and 490s. So 450 is, a low score at the moment. But if the immigration minister says, okay, well, today's draw is just for, and again, I'm making up NOC codes here. Don't take this and say this code is going to get selected. But if they're like, today we're going to pick everyone who's under occupation code 1122. Well, then the pool of people who can be picked is much smaller. So then the score required is obviously going to be lower. So people who have a lower score, if their occupation ends up being one of the ones that's targeted, they could actually get picked with a lower score. So if you're thinking about going in the express entry system and you think you have a low score, it doesn't mean you might never get picked. If this change comes in and you're in an occupation that starts to get targeted, you could get picked. So there is some hope coming, but until we actually see, as draws start to happen, what occupation codes they're picking, we don't really know what codes they might be targeting. Before express entry came into existence, we had a very clear list of 50 occupations that if you're on this list, this is who they will take, and if not, then we're not going to take you. It seems like the way this is going to work is it's always going to be changing like some of the provinces do. This draw, they might take certain NOC codes, and then if they find that that fills the need, they'll move on to the next NOC code. So there's really nothing to say that if you have a low score, there's no hope for you. It's just let's wait and see which occupation codes start getting picked, because that could definitely benefit you. Or if you have a lower score, but maybe you're bilingual, French and English, they have said that they are likely to target people with different language profiles. Now, we had a really good question on this, someone asking, well, would it be foreign languages? My guess is no, just because the official languages of Canada are French and English, and most workplaces, they only can ask for French or English. So my guess right now is more they're going to be targeting bilingual or French-speaking individuals who are not destined for Quebec. So if you, speak French, and maybe you're intermediate level, but you haven't bothered to do a French test, doing that would boost your score, but also it might make you eligible in these targeted draws, even if your comprehensive ranking score is not as high as you think it needs to be. So just a few things to consider, because at this stage, the draws for other categories outside of provincial nominees are going to resume in July. So if you're thinking about getting into this draw, it's not just, is my score 500? There's other things coming up that could definitely benefit you. So a few things to weigh when you're looking at getting into the system or not. Now, the next big thing is the immigration minister was speaking with the CBC on the weekend, and he was discussing a new immigration program that he is currently working on. Now, where this program came from is it is a motion that was brought up, and it is called Motion 44. And the official title of this motion is Permanent Residency for Temporary Foreign Workers. So that is why some people are referring it to as 44. Some people I've seen talking about a sub-program of the Canadian Experience class. What the immigration minister has said is it's more of the old TR to PR pathway that we saw last year. Now, the text of the motion, it's very, very small, so not a full program, but basically to give the immigration minister guidelines of what he should be doing with this. Now, the most important part of the text to focus on really is the industry that people have suggested that they focus on. So with that, what has been suggested is that he's focusing on underrepresented groups, so underrepresented in the current programs that exist. So this should be health services, caregivers, healthcare workers, agriculture, manufacturing, service industries, trades, and transportation. So those are the industries that, Parliament feels is the most in demand. But we're gonna have to, of course, wait and see which occupations they want to target. The other parts of the text that are important is they also One section says to amend eligibility criteria under economic immigration programs to give more weight to significant in Canada work experience and expand the eligible occupational categories and work experience at various skill levels. So when they're talking about economic immigration programs, that could potentially include express entry, but this motion seems more about creating a new pathway that's going to be separate from express entry. And another section of the text that is important here is that they feel there should be a focus on geographic distribution of immigrants, so, the regions that they're going to go to, and also bringing in more francophone immigrants outside of Quebec. So this is also what we mentioned when we were looking at the changes for the express entry system. They are trying to bring in French-speaking individuals who do not want to go to Quebec. So again, if you speak French, usually at the intermediate level, that is going to be a big benefit for you. It opens a lot of doors to different programs. So last month, he was basically a 120-day deadline to come up with the outline of this program. So we're probably going to expect it by the end of the summer, the details, or at least hopefully some kind of details from them. We know that they're not extremely transparent or very good about giving information to the public. So the program is being created for international students and foreign workers, so not just students, but also people on work permits who have not studied in Canada. So to get both of those groups of individuals from their temporary status to permanent residency. Because as we know, with the draws not happening for Canadian Experience Class and Federal Skilled Worker, there's been a lot of people whose work permits are expiring and they're concerned they're gonna have to leave the country. So this is, to address that, to get these temporary workers or temporary residents, international students included, onto permanent residency status. So we don't have any more details other than that. We don't know if it's going to be like last year's program, that you have to have a job in Canada to be considered, that you have to be in the country to be considered, what occupations. So we don't have any of those details, but we know that basically in the next 100 days, they're going to have to finalize their plan of what this program is going to be. And then hopefully we will get more details about who they're going to be targeting specifically. We know it is workers and students, but like I said, is it people with jobs? Is it recent graduates? Is it certain occupations? We're going to have to wait to find all of that out. But if you are on a work permit or study permit, at least this is another option that could come available for you to get to the permanent residence if you're concerned that express entry is not going to work for you. So thank you guys as always for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with all the latest Canadian immigration news and updates.